Hi, everybody. Welcome to One Calls the Hallmarkies. This is the show where we are looking at One Calls the Heart, season 9, and we're recapping episodes 2 and 3. So much fun. I'm so excited to get to talk about these episodes. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ruth Hill is here.
Hi, it's so great to be back.
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
Good. Very good. Very good. Very busy. And I wanted to make sure to tell everybody, all the Hearties listening, that we talked last time about people that are kind of hate watching the show. And I gave some advice on different shows that they could watch instead. Well, I made a whole video on my channel full of recommendations for if you either like or don't like One Calls the Heart anymore. You can watch these shows, and I worked really hard on it. So I'll put a link in the description. You should check it out. It's really fun. I probably mentioned maybe 20 or more shows through the course of the video. I mentioned a lot. So take a look at that. And I think y'all will really enjoy it. So wanted to bring that up before we started. But how are you feeling? We're 3 episodes in. How are you feeling about season 9 so far?
I'm having a blast watching it. I'm going to be honest, I'm not live tweeting because my schedule has changed so much. I'm not able to live tweet. But I'm enjoying getting to watch them. My mom and I are enjoying them together.
Yeah, your mom enjoying it?
Yeah, she's enjoying it.
That's good. Yeah, I'm too. I really think it's been fun. I mean, we've had arcs so far from most of the characters in the town that have started or continuing on, and so that's a lot of fun. Some new characters that we've enjoyed, and so yeah, I think it's a pretty promising start to the season. Mm-hmm. So, all right, well, we're going to start with episode 2, and this one is called. This one is called Out Like a Lamb, and it's Hope Valley elects a new mayor. Lucas and Elizabeth try to find the little moments in their relationship. Elizabeth offers to help Nathan with his horse after the hit and run, but it's newcomer May who connects with Newton. So overall, what do you think about this episode?
I really enjoyed this episode. I thought the previews were really misleading.
Oh yeah, it was outrageous, to be honest.
But yes, especially in regards to Nathan. Yeah. But then I did stop and say, that's so like Hallmark. I mean, what else would we expect? Come on. But no, I really enjoyed this. And I mean, I'm sure, I know we'll touch on it, but yes, Hickam has a storyline. You were right. Because you got that merchandise that's Hickam for mayor. Look at you. You called it.
Yeah. Well, I can take full credit. It was really Amber. Amber designed the shirt in 2020. And now, 2 years later, it has come to fruition. the Hickam for mayor shirt has finally been realized, and it is still available to purchase on the merch store. We'll put a link. But yeah, no, that was her design. I have to give her full credit. It was her design. Okay. But yeah, no, we called it very early on. We've always been a big fan of Hickams and Ben Rosenbaum. We found him to be delightful, super funny, and so that, just to jump to the big reveal. I mean, when it was revealed to be Hickam, I had a big smile on my face, from ear to ear.
Oh yeah. Most definitely. Yeah. And
I think that it's again going to make good TV, because you've already seen it. We'll see it in episode 3. We'll talk about it, but they're already discounting him. They're already assuming he's an idiot, and he's already beginning to sort of prove them wrong. And I think that's going to be a fun journey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do too. Yeah. Don't ever underestimate Hickam. We've known all along. We've known from, okay, when did Hickam come into this series? Was that, I don't remember if it was season 2 or season 3. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 or 4, but okay. It was early. It was early on. Yeah.
But I have loved him from the beginning, and he had that hashtag for so long, Hickam's Hearties, and I'm sure that there still are those that use that hashtag. I have no doubt. Yeah. And so don't ever underestimate Hickam.
Yeah, because one of the problems with the show in the middle of its run was that it was so Elizabeth and Jack focused, that everything else kind of got put to the wayside. And that was their bread and butter. That was their cream. I understand why they did that. But it's been fun the last couple of seasons to see sort of really the whole town get their dues. And I think even the loss of Abigail actually helped a little bit with that too, because she also took a lot of time, for things. And so I don't know, you've gotten to know so many more characters that are some of, I think, the fan base's favorite characters. Certainly mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Flomo, have like full people, full fan bases, which is fine. Fandoms.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, but that was a cheap reveal with Nathan. I was just, because the coming next on One Calls Hard or whatever.
Yes.
They make it seem like it's gonna be this big, he doesn't remember Elizabeth. And it turns out it's all just a big joke. He's just pulling her leg.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I wonder if the folks I wonder if the folks at One Calls Hard are watching Heartland, because this whole Newton plot seems right out of Heartland to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, where is Amy Fleming? Is she around? Because Mesu has got the horse whispering ways of Heartland Ranch. Because Heartland, if people don't know, is all about a woman named Amy Fleming, who is basically a horse whisperer, and she takes troubled horses, and and there's kind of a sort of a disease of the week, different problems with different horses each episode, and she, through her ways, is able to always figure out what's wrong with the horses. And so the way that Macy was kind of interacting with Newton reminded me a lot of the way that Marshall and as Amy Fleming, the way that she interacts with the horses on that show. And I recap Heartland with Michelle here on the podcast, and so it's just always fresh on my mind every week. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. Have you seen any Heartland? Have you ever watched it?
I've seen some. I have honestly not. I'm not up to date on it.
Yeah.
I'm like way behind.
Yeah. But anyway, what did you think of that whole dynamic of Mesu with Newton and everything?
Oh, I absolutely am in love with the character Mesu. I think she's just amazing. I actually happened to chat with Andrea Brooks, and we were expressing a lot of our mutual admiration for the actress playing Mesu, and so I've enjoyed that arc, and I think it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, for sure.
Yeah, I have too. I got a chance to talk with Amanda Wong, who plays Mesu, and she was delightful. So we had a really good time together. So that's a really fun interview. We find out that so Fiona, she apologizes to Gowan, and she gets Smith to drop the assault charges, so that way Gowan is able to leave the prison. And Joseph comes in then and says, I don't want to hear the sermon. Gowan says, I don't want to hear the sermons. And then Joseph says, you blame Smith or yourself for that mine disaster. And what did you think? What do you think about Gowan in this episode?
Gowan, I've always been really a fan of his character. I mean, Gowan was somebody that you have to have this character, but I love the arc that he's been on. I think he's had such an extraordinary arc, really, if you look at him from the beginning of the beginning of the show till now. He's probably the most complex character there, and they've given him such extraordinary stuff. It's going to be interesting to see, because I was so afraid that he was going to be gone after last season. I think a lot of us were.
Yeah,
he might not be back. And now that they've brought him back, it's every episode, you never know what's going to happen. So of course with this one, it's like you just don't know where it's headed, and it's it's so interesting now that you get so many of these details that we missed in the first couple, that we didn't know about in the first couple seasons. So it's been interesting to fill in the backstory of Galen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of makes the show feel like we haven't just forgotten all of that stuff from the early seasons, that it makes the show feel richer, I think, when you have those tie-ins. And it'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes. And it was cute. The next episode, when you see him reading Elizabeth's book, I like that. Yeah. So it's an interesting plot here between Joseph and Cooper. And so Cooper tells him, I don't want to go to church anymore. And I'm curious, as a mother, how you would feel about this, with if your daughter said, you know what, I'm not feeling it, I don't feel like I should go. Like, how would you approach that? What would you do?
That's a hard one. I know I was watching that, and then I know we get more information in the next episode that we'll talk about. But I think that if my daughter had come to me, first of all, it really depends on the age. I mean, if it's a 5-year-old coming to me saying, I'm not going to church, well, I'm not going to leave you at home by yourself. I mean, that's the thing. But I don't know how old Coop is supposed to be exactly.
It seems like 10, maybe 11,
probably
maybe
something like that, I'm assuming. And so at that point, it only makes sense that that's a point when kids start questioning their faith. And if it's always been a part of their lives and unquestioned, it's going to make sense. And I think that I'm grateful. My daughter never came to me like that. It was just never, I didn't have that situation, but had it come up, I would have definitely opened up the discussion and certainly not forced her to be a part of things. I'm not sure exactly where I would have stood when I would have finally said, okay, you don't have to go to church. Definitely as a teenager, it was her, when she got to that point, it's your decision. I'm not going to force you. But there was never, that didn't come up.
Right.
So I think it seems like he and his mom have a really close, open, seems like he was able to, he felt very comfortable coming to her. And so somehow there's been that open door of communication.
Well, probably it's harder to go to his dad, since his dad is the pastor. I would think that would make it a little more intimidating.
Right.
I kind of feel like I feel like I would try to strike a compromise in that I feel like the family should go to church together for services. If you don't want to participate in any of the other activities, if you don't want to give testimony, if you don't want to do anything like that, no problem. But I feel like, and then when you're older and you can, make your own choices, then you don't have to go to services if you don't want. But I feel like as a family, that's a family activity. You should go. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to learn from it. You don't have to like it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not a parent, so who knows what I would actually do. But I certainly would have had to go to church with my parents. That was not an option with my parents, at least to Sunday services. I think my parents would have agreed that if you don't want to participate in the activities, weekly, prayer group, things like that, you don't have to do that. But got to go to church. It's a family activity.
Yeah, with my brother stopped going to church when he was a teenager. My parents let him make that decision.
Yeah.
He's back in the church now. I mean, he came back around. I really think that it is something that you have to know your child, and you have to be able, and I think if you have that open communication where and that's what I always have with my daughter. She can come to me about absolutely anything. And I think that if you have that established, that you're going to be able to figure out what to do in that situation. Because the big thing you certainly don't want is you don't want to force them to go and then have them just completely rebel and not want, and and they begin to see as a drudgery and something that they just absolutely hate. You don't want that to happen. So compromise is a good idea if you can find a workable compromise. But I think that what makes this so complex is Cooper's dad is the pastor, and that really brings this to a different level.
I agree. We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Though I did think, remember last time we were talking about or in the preview when we were talking with Jax about the saloon and how this saloon is not a place of ill repute. It was kind of that I felt like this episode drove that point home when Elizabeth wants Henry to talk to the children about the fact that he had punched Smith in the saloon. Like, why on earth do the kids even know about this? Why would they even
I hadn't even thought about that. Oh, you're so right. Yeah.
That was really funny to me.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, with the fight in the saloon is gonna be the talk of the schoolhouse. Like, what?
I guess there's not a lot going on in town, so
the balloon guy's gone. There's nothing else to talk about, but Henry punching this guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when we find out the Hickam won, and that was just really fun. I totally enjoyed that with Florence and Ned making the announcement after the recount.
Yes.
And are we supposed to believe that there's so few people in Hope Valley, in the town, that the fact that Elizabeth voted for Lee and Lucas voted for Bill, that's what split the vote and made Hickam mayor?
I don't know. I don't feel like we ever get the idea of really how big or how small Hope Valley is. I think that's one thing that we just, because there honestly cannot be a town of 20 people. I'm sorry, that's not
very nebulous.
And that just, but sometimes you get the feeling that that's all there is.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I agree. But because they said that, because Elizabeth said, "Oh, I voted for Lee," and then Lucas said, "Oh, I voted for Bill." Oh, we split the vote.
I know. I guess I took that to mean I thought that maybe they did split the vote, but I was wondering if it meant that I see what you're saying. I probably misunderstood that and thought that meant that because you had a certain group that was following Bill and a certain group that was following Lee, that's
not just them.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do we know why Allie has not been in this season? Do you know if there's any reason why, Jada?
No. I thought she was supposed to be in some of the episodes. I thought I had seen that posted, but maybe I was wrong. I'm not sure.
Because it seemed like they were building Robert and her as a thing.
Yeah.
But now I'm wondering, it seems like they're building him up with Angela.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There could have been a scheduling conflict too that we aren't aware of. Because if those actors get called into something else or another show or something like that, there could be lots of reasons. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Did you like the whole scene where Lucas brings Nathan ice cream? That was really good.
How much ice cream can that man eat? I mean,
he wants double scoops.
I know. I'm always find it so funny when in these Hallmark shows and movies, when people are gorging on sweets, and I'm thinking, you can't look the way you do and gorge on the amount of sweets that you're talking about. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah. I mean, they do exercise a lot on the prairie, you know,
true.
So that probably helps a little bit, but yeah, it was a funny scene. And
it was.
And then I also kind of appreciated when Nathan's like, if you're struggling with any guilt, and Lucas is like, why would I be guilty? Like,
right, exactly.
And which is right. Like, he got the girl. Like, why?
Right.
Like, he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You know, all's fair. Love and war.
That's right. That's right.
And so then we get a scene with Fiona apologizing to Henry. I kind of forgot when I was doing the preview. I just forgot about that whole Fiona plotline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just I didn't remember it, but yeah. So she went. She got Smith to come there. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. And then yeah, so they have a talk, and she says Jerome doesn't blame you for what happened. And then so Smith, Jerome, he talks to Henry, he talks to Gowan, and he says, "You'll regret not being part of things, Henry." And then he leaves, not a single punch thrown.
Right.
But then Fiona's leaving with him, with Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see in episode 4 kind of more about what's going on with all of that.
Right. Yeah.
So it seems like Henry is going to be tempted back into the evil world of business.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I didn't really understand is why Nathan can't be at his own house in his own bed. Why does he have to be there at the infirmary?
I think because I'm assuming that Faith wants to monitor him so he doesn't do too much. I'm assuming that's what it is, because Nathan
he keeps trying to stand and stuff.
Nathan would be one of those people. We don't know quite what the extent of his injuries. I feel like he probably was injured more than we realize, and it's just probably precaution on her part, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Maybe she doesn't want to be sued.
Right.
I don't know that, but that
practice.
happened.
So then there's this whole thing between Newton and May Sue and Nathan and Elizabeth. And Newton says, and Nathan says, Newton has always been a good judge of character. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth says, is this how it's going to be between us from now on? Because it's a little icy. Yeah. And he says, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little unrealistic, I think, to expect to be super great friends. I mean, you certainly should be civil to each other, but I can't imagine many exes are super good friends.
Well, it hasn't been a super long time.
Yeah.
That's
it hasn't been long.
And then secondly, they're seeing each other every day. It's not like there's a chance to get a lot of distance. You know, he's being reminded every single time he sees Elizabeth, which is every day basically. Then he sees her with Lucas. He's constantly reminded. I mean, that's got to like be digging into him just a little bit of, making it a little harder to repair those.
Yeah, especially when we start talking about this book, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But we see Rosemary that she wants a new window in the, and it seems like, has Lee completely forgot about his job of running the mill?
I don't know. I feel like that's something that happens in this show. Is I feel like things get neglected, like people have, because they have so many different jobs and they have to fill so many different things that they neglect one for a while until it's time to bring it back. So he's been doing it. So we're not sure, I guess, at this point. I guess
everybody, well, in all Hallmark shows, everyone has 500 jobs. Like, yes. I mean, Good Witch, Cassie had like 5 jobs.
Well, yeah,
at the same time.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And it was just like, whenever it was convenient, she would be like the college professor. Oh, but I'm also running the store.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever it was convenient to have a scene in the store. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit weird at the end of this episode where Lee says to Rosemary, you would have made a great mother, and you would have made a great father. Just glad we have each other. I thought that was kind of a weird line, because have we like given that up?
I know. I actually had the same thought. I wasn't sure why that was put in, because I thought even back then there were other options as far as adoption, and that's been a part of the storyline in the past. Not for them, I realize, but part of the storyline for other characters. So why would it not be an option?
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done like in Love Comes Softly when there's the orphan train.
Yeah,
and they would end up adopting some of the kids on the orphan train. But yeah, I thought that was an odd moment, especially because it wasn't even really needed. It was just there was no plot reason for them to say that. But it ends up with Joseph's sermon. And it says, Hope Valley won't stay the same forever. Change is coming. So this is very tantalizing, I think. And we also see Gowan almost going to church.
Yes, almost.
Yeah. And it would be actually a really fun, since they've been building up this relationship between Joseph and Gowan, if they were going to have Gowan talk to Cooper and then both come to church. And wouldn't that be a cute scene if he went up to Cooper and said, I'll go to church with you? That would be adorable.
That would be, because I like Gowan with the kids. I know that
I do too.
That's always, there's something so special about that. I remember there was a Christmas episode, wasn't it, where Gowan
with the When Hope Calls girls.
Yes. So
he reads.
It would be really I'm in agreement with you. Okay. Yeah. You throw that out there. Now we just I realize that they can't change it if it's not there, but we can be hopeful.
Come on, writers, don't let me down. That would be so cute.
It would be.
All right. Well, what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
1 to wait. 1 to what?
1 to 10.
1 to 10. Okay. I thought that you said, and then I wasn't sure. Okay.
You're fine.
I am gonna say, I can say 8.5. I'll say 8.5.
Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm going to say an 8. I really thought it was a fun episode. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
So then we have Turn of the Page. Elizabeth's book is finally published and it is the talk of the town. Lucas plans a surprise party to celebrate the event, but some bad book reviews have Elizabeth in a less than social mood. So overall, what did you think about this episode?
This was a really fun episode. I think it's definitely been my favorite so far of the season, no doubt. I was really into it. Like I don't even remember looking away or looking down at anything, because I was really into the story and I enjoyed the humor that was in it. There was there's some really humorous moments, and not there never is, but I just really enjoyed what I saw, and I thought that the storyline was fun, characters, and of course, I mean, now finally we have Elizabeth's book. Finally, after all this time, she has this book, and so that was great.
I think that they could honestly publish this book and people, the Hardys would buy it. Don't you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like they got Hallmark Publishing. Why not?
Yeah, I'd be with you on that.
Yeah, I'd read it.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. But I mean, it's a risky thing writing a memoir. I mean, it's not technically a memoir, it's fiction, but it's based on her life, which is very risky to do. You see how mad Molly got.
I know, that was such a great scene.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was funny.
I kind of wondered if they were going to make it that one of the letters, to the editor, one of the opinions was from Molly. Because it seemed like kind of they were going that way. But I guess everybody writes their book reviews into the Village Voice.
I guess so. or maybe that was, or I wondered if those were just like book reviews that were out there and they were compiling them like from various sources. I don't know if that's what if that's the kind of thing that they do, that here's the book review that's published and it was published elsewhere and now you can publish. I'm not clear about how all that works.
Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing, because obviously I am a film critic for my job.
Yes.
And so I have a particular perspective about criticism and critique to bring to this episode. And if you listen to our recap of the winter movies, the January movies, I had something to say about the way that the Perfect Pairing, the one with Brennan and Nazneen, the way that movie treated criticism as this villain. Yeah. And the thing about that annoyed me about that is that she was just doing her job, right? She had no responsibility to give a second chance, to review the restaurant. I mean, review the winery again. If she did that again for everything, she would have way less wineries that she could review. She's giving a public service to the community who can't try every single winery. She's taking her skills and she is giving her honest opinion. And at the end of the movie, when she says this is like the best Chardonnay whatever I ever had, that would mean nothing if she hadn't been honest in the beginning, right? Because if she had just said, oh, this terrible wine is good, then when she actually found one she liked, it would mean nothing. And so I took issue with that. I still enjoyed the movie, but I took issue with that portrayal because the critics are not the enemy. Right. But that's different than what happens here. This is not actually someone doing their job and reviewing the book. Yeah. This is people that are critiquing the author. At least they didn't really read any of the actual mean reviews. They just said, oh, they are mean, and then showed them reading them. But according to Elizabeth, the reviews are more about her than about the actual book. Right. And so that's where, if to use the example of the Perfect Pairing movie, if she had in her review, instead of critiquing the wine, which is her job, if she had spent paragraphs on Brennan's character and how he wasn't, whatever, like some kind of personal attack, that's not doing her job. And so I think that's where you kind of have to find the line here, is that there probably were some of those negative reviews that were perfectly valid. Right. And I think it seems like they were saying that Elizabeth could handle that and we're okay with that. But for whatever reason, these people that were writing in seem to be particularly upset with her. Yeah. Is that how you took it as well?
Yeah, I was thinking it makes perfect sense, that especially because she's a woman writing essentially a frontier romance kind of type thing. Back in that time period, female authors weren't really taken that seriously, and especially writing that subject matter. Well, then she should expect that people are going to write reviews like that, and they're probably going to attack her just because she's a female author, and she shouldn't be doing that. And then if you think about the fact that she's a single mother on the prairie, well, they'll be attacking her for that, because that was not the norm back then either. So I was going at it more thinking she shouldn't be surprised that people are sending in these kinds of reviews, because of who she is and what the story that she chose to tell, and the fact that she's, why are you not married again and sitting at home taking care of the house like a good frontier woman should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true too. I mean, this time it's supposed to be like 1920, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'm not sure when the first Little House on the Prairie book came out, but I kind of would think of it somewhat similar to like Lauren Goes Wilder, kind of a type of story.
Right.
That kind of book. But yeah, I mean, whenever you make anything, when I make this podcast, people sometimes say extremely mean things about me. You should see some of the reviews. Someone said that listening to my voice was like nail on a chalkboard.
Oh, goodness.
And that I had an atrocious accent. And okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say that that's like pleasant to hear, but if I'm going to be a critic, I have to be able to take it. If I'm going to dish it, I have to be able to take it too. And some people just aren't going to like the things I make, and that's okay.
Right.
And so that's probably a little bit of what Elizabeth is going to have to learn.
She's going to have to grow very thick skin, because you have to, if you're a creator of anything, no matter what it may be, you're going to have to grow really thick skin and just get to the point where you take you read the criticism, and you can think about whether there's any truth to it at all. Whenever I receive criticism, that's what I do, is I say, okay, is there any truth to this? If there's no truth to it at all, I throw it out. But most of the time there's a tiny, like somewhere in there, if there's a tiny little piece I can take, and then just throw the rest out. And that's
true. That is very good counsel. And if it's something that you can change, I can't change how my voice sounds.
Right. Exactly.
And if somebody doesn't want to, that's perfectly fine. That's great. And hopefully they can find something else that they enjoy. Exactly. But that is, I totally agree with you. That is part of being a creator, is that some people are not going to like what you create, and that's it. And so that's what Elizabeth is definitely going to have to learn. And I'm sure it's the hardest for your first book. And then once you write more and more and more, you probably get that skin gets thicker, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Rosemary will be able to help with this, because she certainly is somebody who's had her fair share of criticism and critique.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, I was a little bit confused about this article that Lee has written. So he's titled it Duck Soup for Hickam. Now, Duck Soup, of course, we know the Marx Brothers movie, but what it is, it's an expression of an easy task or someone easy to overcome. So somebody that's kind of stupid is sort of what Lee is saying. And in the end, he kind of treats, both him and Bill kind of treat Hickam like he's stupid.
Yeah.
And I liked it at the end when he's like, clear out your stuff. I'm getting to work. So that's going to be, again, I like it when we have flawed characters.
Yes.
I like it when they learn and grow. So the fact that Lee is kind of being a jerk, I think is going to be interesting to see what he does.
I agree with you. Yeah. I know I was wondering what the contents of the article were, what it was exactly, because I didn't quite get it. But yeah, that makes sense. And it is good to see Hickam beginning to stand up for himself, because that's been his biggest issue. He couldn't stand up to Rosemary. He couldn't stand up to just about, anybody. Everybody just ran over the top of him, and he just let it happen. And so to see him begin to stand up for himself more, even though it's not easy, and you can see that struggle. I think Ben's doing an exceptional job portraying that the many layers of Hickam as we begin to see all this.
Yeah. So because Walden is coming to town, and Bill takes his gun, and Walden is like, I have a right to, carry arms. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what the rules are in Canada, but that's definitely true here.
Right.
He had no right to take his gun.
Right.
But I guess here in the United States now you would need a concealed gun permit. But I don't think back in the frontier days that was the case. But anyway, so Hickam meets with Walden, and he's absolutely right. If he is representing the Foundry, of course, the mayor is going to want to meet with him. Yeah, that makes sense. And I did kind of like the fact that the kids all think Elizabeth's book is super boring. That made me laugh.
Well, you would expect that.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary. They're not the intended audience. We know that.
No, I thought that was funny though, that they did that. That was good. And they're hiding the book, and then Elizabeth was like, Angela, why do you have my book on your chest? Someone was reading it to me. Right. So we also have this scene where Gowan is supposed to get a physical from Faith. And I do think that was fairly realistic, that I don't think that men in that era would have been comfortable with a woman examining them in a medical situation. I don't know.
Yeah. I had that same thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because
even today there are men who struggle with that, let alone the 1920s.
Yeah, I think that was realistic, and especially with Gowan being so much older. I mean, he, of course, it's like he couldn't even imagine like a woman is going to give me a physical, and we know what a physical entails. Yeah, I would not be. Yeah, I can definitely see the struggle there. But I will say that then, and are you going to cover Faith's phone call?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. I think I wrote that somewhere. Oh yeah. Faith leaves word to Carson. I got it. Yeah. But we have this whole thing with Lucas planning the book release. We saw that in the and we talked about it on the preview, that they showed like a congratulations party, and so we kind of surmised that it was about the book release. And so he has Gustav there, who evidently is like imprisoned in the saloon. We never see him anywhere else in the town ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And did they say that it's Gustav is Lucas's cousin? I think he said that it was his cousin.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I missed that.
Yeah, pretty sure. I'm like, oh wow. Anyway, but I it's kind of funny that so he's preparing all of the things for the party, and then they planned the whole thing that they're going to surprise Elizabeth, and she's up in the balcony, and she doesn't want to leave. She's just getting super swoony and super like she kisses him, and like all that was really, I thought, pretty funny.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It was really good. And Lucas is just like, there's people downstairs. Like,
and yes, Elizabeth would not get an Academy Award for her acting ability.
No. Yeah, when she pretends to be surprised, it was like Erin Greco did a good job.
Yes.
Bad acting.
Yes, she did. Absolutely. That was hilarious.
And you see Rosemary and she's like,
Yeah, exactly.
That was good. I thought it was all really funny.
Oh yeah, it was great. I agree.
And then we have this. Lucas says that investors won't go ahead if Henry isn't part of the oil thing. So now Gowan is waiting and trying to figure out what to do. And then we also, Rosemary wants her new window. So Joseph is installing the window and he installs it backwards. So that he can spend more time with Cooper, which was cute. I liked that.
It was.
She's been getting all of these kind of mean reviews. And then she gets a letter from Lucas's mom with the pencil that she used for the edits. And he says, "You have pulled the sword from the stone, dear, and unleashed your power on the written word." That was cute. That was good. Yeah. And then Bill and Molly, Molly says she's not like a Jezebel or a tart.
I know. Poor Molly.
I hope we get more of their relationship. It was fun.
Me too. Yes, I want more with them. Yes.
Then also, Florence talks to Nathan and says, "You've recently had your heart flouted."
Yes.
And then everyone keeps asking him if he's read Elizabeth's book, and because Florence sees what's like maybe an interest between Mesu and Nathan. So it's like, be careful, you recently had your heart flouted.
Yes.
Yeah. We also find out there's going to be a home decorating area for the mercantile.
Yes.
So that's going to be exciting.
Yes, expanding again.
I want more inventions. I want more inventions from Ned.
True. Yeah. He's quite an inventor. We know that.
Yeah. And so Mesu, I mean, it's an interesting thing because she is qualified. She has her degree up on the framed and everything, but she did lie to them. Like, I can understand why Ned and Florence would struggle with that. And she says, "Well, would you have hired me if as a woman, if I hadn't said that?" And that kind of is beside the point. Like,
yeah, she
still lied to them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she can't be mad that they're not trusting of her.
Right. Yeah. It's, I understand why she lied. And I think we're going to learn more about why she did, but, yeah, it would have been better for her to be upfront. If they didn't ask whether she was a man or woman, that's one thing. I think of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, because I think something like that. That's a different kind of story. But the fact that she pretended she was pretending to be her husband, that's I would.
And so it's going to be interesting too, as they're progressing this sort of romantic angle between her and Nathan. Obviously she's married.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting for One Calls Art.
Yep. I was thinking that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just assume her husband must be a bad dude, I guess. But what's happening?
That's what we're being led to believe, I think. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll see maybe we'll get some more clues. I know the preview kind of hints at some things, so we'll see.
Yeah, so Gowan and Lucas have this conversation. Gowan says this town's on the verge of big changes, and then Lucas says change is within our control. And then Gowan says only a man in love could have that outlook. That was good.
Yeah,
that's good.
True.
I also liked when Rosemary and Elizabeth are talking, and Rosemary says, "I can't believe you didn't put me in the book, but how could you put my whole character in just a supporting role?"
I know. I love that too. Oh, that was great. It was fun.
Yeah. So Joseph tells Cooper, "We'll leave church to you." And so, that's, I guess, how they're going to handle it for the moment. Yeah. And it was kind of surprising. Have we ever seen the saloon used as an actual casino?
We did in this episode, I think.
We did in this. That's what I'm saying. I was like, maybe it is a place of ill repute. He's like cashing in his poker chips.
I know. And And it was very clear Lucas knew what to do. He knew his way around.
I know, like they played cards many times,
Yeah,
but I've never seen that. I've never actually seen.
Yeah, true.
That was funny to me. So we find out that the character that Molly was worried about was actually based on Julie, her Elizabeth's sister, and so Julie's kind of upset by it.
Right.
But I would love to see Julie back. I actually really enjoy Julie.
Yeah, me too. I would love. Yeah, I'm with you.
So May says that that she wants to work with Newton alone. And then she says, if there was something between me and Nathan, I couldn't do anything about it because obviously she's married. And then Elizabeth gets a letter from a widowed mother of two, telling her, thank you for the book. And that's the sort of flip side of all this. Like we talked about, if you're a creator, some people aren't going to like what you do. But then you have a moment where you really connect with somebody and somebody really values something that you do. And that makes it all worth it. It means so much. And so if somebody ever does make something that you love, whether it's a book or a podcast or I'm not asking for everybody to send in lots of comments about the podcast, but that would be great. But I'm just saying, if somebody makes something that you love, take 30 seconds and tell them that you loved it. Take a second, because most people don't. It's way easier to comment on things you don't like than it is to comment on things that you like. It's just, I don't know. It's just human nature. And so if something that you liked, take a second to write a positive review to on iTunes or on Goodreads if it's a book or whatever, or just message them on Twitter and be like, this episode was great, I really enjoyed it, or this book was great, or whatever. It makes you feel really good, and I would highly encourage anyone to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I've had people who have told me that, well, I'm sure that this act, I hear it a lot from actors. Well, this actor, that actor, they probably get a lot of positive comments. It really doesn't make any difference. You'd be amazed they don't get near the amount of positive comments that you think they do. And so don't just assume that somebody else is going to do it. And what you're saying is exactly right. Don't just think, well, they're a big star, they aren't going to care what I think. You have no idea that what you say, just taking that 30 seconds to write that, may absolutely turn their whole day around, or their whole week, or their whole year around. You never know.
That's really true. Even when we do the Hallmarkies podcast awards, because to me, at least, it's like nothing. I mean, it's just like me and my friends giving out awards, and people vote on it and whatever, but it's just like, in the scheme of things, it's not really important. But I'm amazed at how much it seems to mean to the people who win the awards. And just they talk about, I was just so touched that and even people that I think of as being like pretty big stars, I didn't think that Mary Lou Henner was gonna care about our little award, but she was so excited when she won. Not this year before. She was thrilled. She couldn't wait, and she was so excited. And so again, we don't know how much a kind word or just acknowledging that we appreciate something really does mean to people. And it's not saying to be inauthentic. Again, if you don't like something, that's perfectly fine too, and valid. But if you do, take a second and share. And I know it means a lot to us, to all of us on the podcast when we get that feedback. And it means a lot to any creator. It really does. So that was a nice scene. I thought that was good. So then you see Gowan reading Elizabeth's book, which made me smile. That was good. And then Hickam tells Bill, vacate the office by the end of the week. Yes, it was great. It was great. And then we find out the real reason that Cooper is not wanting to go to church, because he feels like it's not fair that Angela is blind, They both got measles. Why? That it made Angela blind. He doesn't know the whole story, that I guess a doctor refused to treat Angela, and they talk about that at the end. And they don't want to like burden him with that because they're in Hope Valley, where there I guess isn't any racism in Hope Valley, and so they're in this happy place, but they were in this other place where she was refused treatment, and that's why she ended up blind. And that's the greatest question of religion. Why do bad things happen to good people? That's the question that's kind of unanswerable. We don't know God's plan. We don't know. And God can only work with people's agency. He can't force people to do the right thing. Otherwise that right thing would mean nothing if everybody was just compelled to do it. And so everybody has to be able to make choices, but then God can help us get through those choices and help us to see the good in the end and get through it. But we don't know the will of God. We don't know his timing. We don't know his plan. But that is the hardest question. Why do scummy things happen? And that's where faith comes in.
Exactly. I'm glad that they touched on this issue, because it doesn't always make its way into Hallmark. And they just touched on it. They touched on it enough, but I appreciated it.
I did too.
As you do too. Yeah.
Because we talked about in the preview as well about it not being a faith-based show, but I did say that there was more of the faith-based content in season 8 than we'd ever seen before. And now we have Joseph as a pastor, which we hadn't had a pastor in a long time. And we're having this religious story arc. Yeah. So it makes me think that John Tinker is more interested in telling stories of faith than the previous showrunner. I think that's fair.
I tend to think that's the case, just based on all of my interactions that I've ever had with him. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know the former showrunner. I don't have any dealings with. I never met him or anything or talked with him. But
I can't think of his name, but we interviewed him actually.
Yeah.
But I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But yeah, I can't think of it. Anyway, I welcome that. I think that if it's done well, I think it's interesting. Religion is an important part of people's lives. It's interesting to talk about it and to have it be a part of the show. So,
I agree.
So then we have Lucas meeting with Walden and talking French on the phone.
Yes.
And he gets mad on the phone in French. So I don't know what's going on.
I want to take a moment and compliment Chris on his fantastic accent. That was really good because I took French in high school. So I was really listening and I was like, man, he's got it down.
Because he's not Canadian, right? Or is he?
Chris is Canadian.
He's Canadian. So he might speak French.
He might, yeah. But anyway, it was just nice because you don't always get that.
Yeah.
Just in any show, you don't always know if they'll have the accent, but I felt like he had the accent down really well. Like he sounded like he was speaking French. The accent was, he was doing all the right inflections. So
it's true. I remember one time we interviewed Andrew Walker and I'm talking about it. There was something he had to speak French or something French. And we were like, and you speak French? Like the perfect man. But we did get the call, as you mentioned, Faith calls the hospital in Baltimore trying to reach Dr. Carson. And he is just super busy, evidently very busy hospital. And so at first she says, just sell him. Faith called, he'll know. But then she says, Faith Carter. So
yeah, that was, I mean, it actually made me laugh. That particular scene made me laugh.
Yeah, it was cute.
because she's saying, trying to get I'm looking for Dr. Carson Shepherd. And I turned to my mom and said, we're all looking for Dr. Carson Shepherd, but we're not going to find him this season. Because he's not in the season. And so I just thought, but I do appreciate the fact that they're keeping him alive and he's not dead. I mean, I do. I mean, and that's just, and that's just me. I'm not saying that he and Faith have to be together. I like Paul. I mean, not just because I work for him. I realize, I mean, that just, I would not mind having, but if they do bring him back, I was telling my mom this, they do bring him back next season, hoping, I'm looking towards next season and hoping there is one. I want him to have a really good character arc. It doesn't have to be that he has to come back for Faith, but if you bring him back, I want him to have a really, really meaty character arc. That's just
we don't need everybody to die when they leave the show.
Right. Exactly.
Thank goodness. Right. I agree. I forgot to mention that I thought it was kind of funny when Lee is answering, he answers one phone, nothing, another phone, another, and finally gets on the third one. And it's interesting because he announced himself as Leland Coulter, managing editor. And I think he's the only one that refers to him as Leland.
Yeah.
Everybody calls him Lee.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because my family is not one for nicknames. In my family, my mom was never a big fan of nicknames, and so we just didn't. And so I actually, when we were first, Amber and I were first recapping the show, I would always refer to him as Leland because that's his name, and that's just the way that my brain works.
Yeah.
But she was just like, everyone calls him Lee. Why do you keep calling him Leland? Yeah. Like, that's his name.
Yeah. True.
Anyway, but that was I thought kind of a funny scene. So
yes, that was.
There we go. That is the episode. What would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I'm gonna say 8.75.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought this was a really good episode. I thought it was funny. It had those sweet moments talking about the faith. For a When Calls Hard episode, it almost every single character had some kind of story beat, some kind of moment, which is nice. Even the kids had a moment at school.
That's true.
Yeah. So I agree with you. Really good. Well, let us know if you are watching, listening. Let us know what you think of these 2 episodes. Where do they stand for you? We would love to hear your thoughts, mean or otherwise. Please put in the comment section or on Twitter. Right. And make sure you check out that video I did with the recommendations for other shows. If you like When Calls the Heart, I really worked hard on it and I'm really proud of it. So please take a look. And Ruth, where can people find you?
You can find me, Ruth Hill 74, all across social media. And then I do have a podcast, Media from the Heart, and my website says Media from the Heart, but the actual website is mydevotionalthoughts.net.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And also make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And like we said, if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps people to be able to find the show. So the more reviews that we get on iTunes, it really, really, really helps us. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have the patron group and merch store. The merch store has those Hickam for Mayor shirts, as well as lots of other Hardee's inspired merch. So take a look at that. We would so appreciate it. So thanks so much, Ruth. This was a blast. And we'll talk in 2 weeks.
Thanks,
bye, everyone.
Bye.